The Voynich Manuscript is dated back to around 1404 to 1434. Handwritten, nobody could decode it.
What if the world's most mysterious book, a 600-year-old manuscript that has baffled cryptographers, linguists, and historians for centuries, was just decoded by artificial intelligence? What if the text that nobody could read for 6 centuries turned out to contain knowledge that was never supposed to be discovered? And what if what it says is so disturbing that researchers are now questioning whether some knowledge should remain hidden? The Voynich Manuscript has been called the most mysterious book in the world. Written in an unknown script, filled with bizarre illustrations of unidentifiable plants, strange astronomical charts, and naked women in green pools connected by elaborate plumbing systems, this medieval codex has resisted every attempt at translation since it was discovered in 1692. The greatest codebreakers of World War II tried and failed. Modern cryptographers using supercomputers couldn't crack it. Linguists analyzed the text statistically and found patterns that suggested real language, but couldn't identify which language or decipher the meaning. For over 300 years, the Voynich Manuscript remained silent, its secrets locked behind an impenetrable linguistic barrier. Until now. In late 2024, a team of researchers using advanced AI language models claimed to have achieved what centuries of human effort could not. They decoded the Voynich Manuscript, and what they found isn't what anyone expected. So, if you're ready to learn what 600 years of mystery has been hiding, hit that subscribe button. Because what we're about to explore challenges everything we thought we knew about medieval knowledge, the limits of what was possible in the 15th century, and whether some discoveries are too dangerous to be made. The manuscript itself is carbon dated to the early 1500s, though some researchers argue it could be older. It's written on vellum, animal skin that was expensive and rare in medieval times. Nobody writes a 240-page book on expensive vellum as a joke or a hoax. The cost alone suggests this was a serious work meant to preserve important knowledge. The text is written in an unknown alphabet with roughly 20 to 30 distinct characters, depending on how you count variations. Statistical analysis shows the text has structure similar to natural language. It has word frequency distributions that match real languages. It has patterns suggesting grammar and syntax. But the language doesn't match any known script from medieval Europe, Asia, or the Middle East. The illustrations are equally baffling. The botanical section shows hundreds of plants in detailed drawings. None of these plants can be definitively identified with known species. Some look vaguely familiar, resembling sunflowers or pansies or other recognizable forms, but with strange variations that don't exist in nature, at least not in nature as we know it. The astronomical section contains circular diagrams with zodiac-like symbols, but with bizarre additions that don't match any known astronomical tradition. The biological section, if that's what it is, shows groups of naked women bathing in green liquid flowing through tubes and pools. Some researchers interpret this as related to medicinal bathing practices. Others see something darker, something more disturbing when you look closely at the expressions on the women's faces and the context of the surrounding symbols. Now here's where it gets interesting. The AI that allegedly decoded the manuscript wasn't specifically designed for cryptography. It was a large language model trained on hundreds of ancient languages, dialects, and scripts. The researchers fed it images of the Voynich text and asked it to identify linguistic patterns. What happened next surprised everyone. The AI didn't identify the script as any known language. Instead, it recognized the text as a constructed language, something artificially created, using grammatical structures borrowed from multiple source languages simultaneously. Latin grammar, Arabic word roots, Hebrew symbolic systems, fragments of extinct languages from Central Asia, all blended together into a hybrid cipher language that wouldn't have been possible for any single medieval scholar to create without access to knowledge spanning 3 continents. This alone is disturbing. How did a 15th century manuscript writer have access to linguistic knowledge from Latin, Arabic, Hebrew, and Central Asian sources? Medieval scholars rarely had access to texts from outside their own religious and cultural traditions. A Christian monk in Europe wouldn't typically know Arabic or Hebrew well enough to incorporate their structures into a constructed language. A Muslim scholar wouldn't have access to Christian and Jewish texts in sufficient depth to create this kind of synthesis. Yet, the Voynich text shows deep knowledge of all these traditions working together in ways that shouldn't have been possible in 1500. But that's just the beginning. When the AI began translating the actual content, researchers say what emerged was even more troubling. The botanical section doesn't describe plants from this earth. According to the translation, these are plants from other places, other worlds. The text allegedly describes their properties, their uses, how to cultivate them, and what they do to human consciousness when consumed or applied. Some enhance memory and perception. Others open doorways. That's the word used, doorways. To what? The text isn't entirely clear, or perhaps it's deliberately vague, referring to places between realms adjacent, spaces where the rules differ. The astronomical section apparently isn't about astronomy at all. It's a map, not of the stars as seen from Earth, but of something else. Researchers who've seen the translation describe it as instructions for navigation through non-physical space. The circular diagrams aren't zodiac wheels. They're representations of dimensional boundaries, showing how different layers of reality connect and where the thin points are. Places and times where crossing between them becomes possible. The symbols aren't constellations, they're markers, signposts, warnings. The biological section with the bathing women is apparently the most disturbing part of all. The translation suggests this isn't about bathing or medicine. It's about transformation. The green liquid flowing through the elaborate plumbing isn't water. It's something else, something that changes human biology at a fundamental level. The text describes the process step by step. Preparation, immersion, duration, what happens during, what emerges after. The women in the drawings aren't bathing, they're being changed. Into what? The translation is ambiguous, using words that don't have clear equivalents in modern language. Translated terms include between ones, threshold beings, and keepers. The text allegedly warns that the transformation is irreversible, and that those who undergo it can no longer exist fully in normal reality. They become something that straddles boundaries, permanently altered in ways that separate them from unchanged humanity. Now, you might be thinking this sounds like fantasy, like someone's interpreting random text to create a compelling story. That's possible. The researchers who announced the translation haven't released the full decoded text yet. They claim they're consulting with experts before making everything public. This has led to skepticism. If you've decoded a 600-year-old mystery, why not publish immediately? The researchers say they're being cautious because of the content. They want to verify accuracy and understand the implications before releasing something that could be misinterpreted or misused. But here's what makes the story more credible. Other researchers who've examined the Voynich Manuscript have noticed troubling patterns that align with what the AI translation allegedly revealed. The botanical drawings show internal consistency, suggesting the artist was drawing from life rather than imagination. The root systems and leaf patterns show relationships that make biological sense, even though the species do not exist. As if someone was drawing real plants, just not plants from Earth's current ecosystem. The astronomical diagrams have similar strangeness. Astronomers who've studied them note that while they don't match medieval astronomical knowledge, they do show mathematical relationships that work. The proportions and angles aren't random, they're calculated. They represent something, even if we don't know what. Some researchers have noted that the diagrams could represent multidimensional space mathematically described, something that wouldn't be formally developed until the 20th century. And how would a 15th century manuscript contain mathematical representations of higher dimensional geometry? The strangest part is the historical context around the manuscript's provenance. It was allegedly owned by Emperor Rudolf II of Bohemia in the late 1500s. Rudolf paid 600 ducats for it, an enormous sum equivalent to several years of skilled wages. Why pay that much for an unreadable book? Rudolf was known for his interest in alchemy, occultism, and esoteric knowledge. His court was filled with mystics, magicians, and scholars of forbidden subjects. Rudolf apparently believed the manuscript contained crucial knowledge worth a fortune. What did he think was in it? Did he have it translated or partially translated using methods that are now lost? There are rumors of a companion document, a key to the Voynich script that Rudolf kept separately. This key allegedly disappeared after his death, either destroyed or hidden. If such a key existed, and if it was destroyed, that suggests someone didn't want the Voynich text to be readable. Which raises the question, what knowledge is so dangerous that it needs to be locked away in a language nobody can decipher? The AI translation, if genuine, suggests the Voynich manuscript is an instruction manual for interacting with realities beyond normal human perception. It describes plants that don't exist in our botanical records. It maps spaces that aren't physical locations. It provides procedures for transforming humans into something else, something capable of existing between worlds. This isn't medieval medicine or astronomy or botany. This is something else entirely. Either it's an elaborate fantasy written by someone with extraordinary imagination and knowledge spanning multiple cultures, or it's genuine documentation of knowledge that shouldn't exist in the 1500s. There's a third possibility that's even more disturbing. What if the Voynich manuscript is a warning? What if it was written in an unbreakable code deliberately, because the knowledge was too dangerous to preserve in readable form, but too important to destroy completely? By encoding it in a constructed language borrowing from multiple traditions, the author ensured that only someone with access to knowledge from many cultures could decode it. In the 1500s, that was nobody, but AI does. Modern AI language models trained on texts from dozens of cultures and centuries have the breadth of knowledge no individual human possesses. Perhaps the Voynich manuscript was locked with a key that could only be turned by something that doesn't think like a human. And now that key has turned. The researchers still haven't released the full translation. When they do, we'll be able to verify whether the AI actually decoded the text or whether this is merely wishful interpretation of ambiguous results. Until then, the Voynich manuscript remains what it's always been, a mystery. But maybe it's a mystery that's starting to unlock, and what is inside might be more disturbing than 6 centuries of speculation ever imagined.